Hi there. I am Gwen Raymundi. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate here in the state of Washington in the United States. And I specialize in trauma and grief and embodiment and all their intersections. And I've been, this is the fourth in a four-part series on ancestral trauma and internalized misogyny. And over the last 3 weeks, last three videos, I've been talking about um, what is ancestral trauma, what is internalized misogyny, how it shows up in our lives, and some of the reasons for it that are beyond our control and yet are still our responsibility to create change. So today, in this final one, I'm going to talk about breaking patterns and breaking cycles of abuse, domination, authoritarianism, internalized misogyny, and how we can do that. Some of the ways we can do that. So we gain our internalized misogyny from several places, from our families of origin, how they treat women different from boys or different from men, how they treat the boys different from girls, how expectations are different for the boys and girls in the family. All of that, the roles, the rules, the chores, all of that, right? That gets internalized into us in different messages. And then there is the message from our outer culture, right? And that can come from school, that can come from church, that comes from the media, that comes from, anywhere and everywhere about what boys can do and what girls can do and how girls can't do what boys do and boys can't do what girls do and blah, 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 right? What girls are good at, what boys are good at. This whole idea that, girls are good at cooking and boys are good at baseball, and never shall the two cross and meet, right? And then there's also the ancestral piece. So what's been passed down from our ancestors that both lives in our bodies, in our DNA, in our cellular memory, and also lives in the ways that our family passes down these ideas about females and males and how they need to be treated, and how they need to, what the expectations are for each gender. So how do we break this pattern, right? How do we break cycles of abuse? How do we break cycles of this very unconscious passing on of what girls can and can't do, right? How do we stop that? Well, the first thing we do is we become aware, and we start learning, and we start getting curious about things like, well, where did that idea come from that I have that girls are always supposed to be really good at cooking, right? Where did I get this idea that boys will be boys, and so they get a lot of leeway in behavior that I would never give a girl, right? Where does this idea come from that girls need to be quiet and polite all the time, but boys get to be loud and rude, right? Where did that come from? Where did I get that messaging? Do I really believe that? Does that really, if I sit with myself and get quiet, does that truly ring true for me? What is the language that was passed down? Do we call grown women girls in my family, right? Do we call boys little men, right? How do we infantile women? How do we um, do the opposite of infantiling boys and men? How do we create these expectations? How was that expectation passed down to me, and what was the language that was used around that? Right? How can we look at language and look at the insults that we give to both the females and the males in our lives, right? And is that mostly feminine language that's an insult, right? Start looking at that. Start being aware. Start getting curious. Start asking questions, right? And and then we get to start deciding, okay, is this something I want to pass on? And so that's part, right? That's a part of it. The other part of it is, I believe, really, and especially when we're talking about internalized misogyny, is looking at our female ancestry and what's called our woman line, our female ancestors all the way back, to the beginning of humans. And those ancestors are both bloodline, right, direct bloodline, and also the ancestors of our culture. Who are the women who were influencers throughout the history of our family? Who were the women who were outspoken, who could be role models that our great, 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 great grandmothers could look up to, right? Who were the women in that space and time that my family came from? And learning to connect to them and learning to acknowledge their strengths, their power, their daring to be different, right? Their willingness to create change, or their fight for survival, it's really an and, right? All of these things are important for us to then connect to in our ancestry. And I believe we do that not through doing a decades long genealogy project, although that's fabulous, and many people love doing that, and that's great. And if you are lucky enough to be able to trace back your ancestry, then that's wonderful. Many people can't. And also, I believe that those dates, names, sort of facts and figures of our ancestry, they don't paint the whole picture, right? But our body does contain the remnants of those ancestors. We are carrying their DNA. We are carrying their blood. We have their cellular memory. All of this is within us. And so by tapping into that, not looking for facts and figures, but for looking for that knowing, looking for that connection, looking for that innate wisdom that we have within us. When we start to do that, then we can really start receiving the gifts of our ancestors and begin to understand why traumas were passed down, why internalized misogyny was passed down, why, our mothers were the way they were, right? Why our grandmothers were the way they were. Where did that come from? And so when we're able to start doing that, then we can also start healing that within ourselves. It's not a fast process. It's not a super easy process. It takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of being able to acknowledge that we ourselves have been wrong and have done wrong, and to see the ways that we have actually passed down this pain and trauma, passed down and passed on, right? And to begin to have compassion for ourselves and for those who came before us, so that we can start making that shift and stop passing that down. Changing our language, changing our behavior, changing really our inner core, right? By processing that trauma and allowing our DNA to make the shifts it needs to. All of that is important. And which is why I have this spring circle that I'm offering, that these videos and the essays that go with them are talking about the things and topics and ideas that we'll be exploring and working on during the 6 months together in that circle. If you want to learn more, if you're watching this on YouTube, that video, the link to the essay that goes with this video is down below there in the description, as well as a link to the circle itself, the circle registration page. If you're reading this on my blog, the link to the circle is below this video. And if you got this from my newsletter, then you've got the links there in the letter. Okay, that is all for today and all for this series. I hope that the series has been helpful for you. I hope it's been educational. I hope it's given you questions to explore for yourself and within your own family line. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I would love to connect. Okay, thank you.